The Maine Forest Service is releasing data about the wildfires we have had so far this year, including dozens reported in the last several days. And with dry conditions still an issue, officials are urging people to be mindful about fire safety. They say there have been 525 fires, which have burned more than a total of 400 acres since the start of the year. Since the start of this month, officials say they were called to 124 fires, which burned nearly 71 acres. Just in the last 3 days, there have been 32 wildfires with 17 acres burned. As people gear up to enjoy this weekend, a spokesperson from the Maine Department of Agriculture, Conservation and Forestry says they've also urged ATV riders to stay vigilant.
Any piece of equipment that produces sparks, that is rolling through dry terrain, grassy terrain, trails, it literally ranges from mowing your lawn and your lawnmower producing spark, hitting a rock, causing some spark, or in this case, as you just asked, ATV riders. ATV machines have spark arresters as part of the ignition system. And we're just advising everyone who owns and rides an ATV to be extra cautious. Make sure that those exhaust systems and spark arresters are in good working order.
Officials also advise Mainers to properly extinguish all smoking materials and other potential ignition sources. In result of the dry, dangerous conditions, the state has halted burn permits to reduce the risk. Britt also said this is specifically for people who do large-scale debris burning on their property.